Hi, this is Drew Jones of Drew's Guitar Shop in Seattle, Washington, and today I wanted to do a video about a sort of genre of questions that I get. The genre of question is always in the form of an email, phone call, or a text message, and the question is, hey, X doesn't sound right, feel right, or play right, and I have this problem. Can you tell me what the problem is? And the short answer to that is no, I can't. I can't do that over email, text message, or a phone call. There isn't a luthier around that is going to be able to do that for you. And the reason that that is the case is that if you look behind me here, you'll see a whole lot of diagnostic tools that I use to determine what the problem is in an instrument that has a problem. And without having the instrument directly in front of me, I can't take those tools and touch them to the guitar. I can't handle the guitar, I can't see it, I can't measure things, I can't gauge things. And without that information, I can't tell you what's wrong with your guitar. I know that that's frustrating to hear. And I wish that I had a better answer for you all when I get these questions. I really do. But the simple fact of the matter is that in order to do diagnostics, the thing that's sick needs to be in front of me. And if that isn't the case, then there's very little that I can do, because a lot of problems can be caused by a lot of symptoms can be caused by a lot of different kinds of problems. So in a lot of cases, I'll get, a phone call from a customer that says, hey, I think I need a refret, and I'll bring it in, I'll take a look at it, I'll, quote them a ballpark price if they want on a refret. But I'll always usually recommend that somebody bring something in, because a lot of times, it's something different. So in the case of like somebody who thinks that they need a refret, they may only need a partial refret, they may need a level crown and polish. Oftentimes, they just need something like a basic setup in order to get the guitar to stop buzzing where they've got it buzzing. That's just kind of one example of, some issues that can sometimes have multiple causes or solutions. There's just a lot going on with a guitar. It's a complicated machine. And there's a lot of very, very fine measurements that need to be taken. One of the other things that I'll say, just kind of offhandedly, a lot of times I feel like I'm getting these questions because I think that somebody might want to try doing the adjustments themselves. And I don't want to discourage amateur luthiers out there. I think that everybody starts off someplace. I mean, I started off, fixing my own guitars because I lived out in the middle of like nowhere, New Mexico. And there just weren't that many shops around, and I grew up poor, so my parents wouldn't pay for that repair work that I needed. Fortunately, I was given the Dan Earlywine book fairly early on, and I learned how to kind of tinker on things, and my work early on just sucked. It did. This stuff takes a lot of time to get good at, and so for people who are wanting to tackle that stuff yourself, I would recommend going out and getting a book. Get the Dan Earlywine book, the Guitar Player's Repair Guide, I think it's called. Look at reputable YouTube channels. I don't want to toot my own horn here, but like mine, or like the Stu Mac channel, or basically anybody that's actually got something like this that actually shows that they do this for a living. Maybe vet advice and don't take advice from somebody who's doing a setup on their coffee table. Just kind of throwing that out there. But yeah, in terms of what can be told to a customer as far as what's wrong with my guitar, it's got to be in front of me. I can't really go off pictures. You're not going to know the angles that I need. You're not going to have the tools typically on hand to take the measurements that I'm going to need photos of. There may be things going on where I need to physically handle something and flex it in order to tell what the problem is. There may be things that I need to listen for. Maybe need to detect a buzz by touching spots on the guitar in order to figure out what exactly is buzzing on the instrument. And so there's just very little that can be done without bringing the instrument in. And I kind of the last note that I want to add on here is that, like, I have a feeling that part of this too is also that people are a little intimidated to bring instruments into a shop. I think that, I think running on kind of anxieties I had as kind of a young player, I always kind of thought that it would be embarrassing to go in there and get like sticker shocked and have to like walk out after realizing that I couldn't afford the repair, or that I would get talked into something, or something bad would happen. I'll tell you that from my perspective in this shop, you'd be the only one here. You'd be the only one I'd be talking to. You'd be the only one that ever got seen. There's nobody here to like watch you walk away if you decide that you don't want to do it. But the other thing too is that I'm usually going to give somebody kind of a 2-number, like a 2-tier repair list. I'll kind of list out the stuff that definitely needs to happen, and then I'll list out the stuff that would be nice. And kind of base what we do off of that. But there's negotiation that happens between the customer and the repair tech. That should be the way that it is. And you don't do anything that the customer doesn't agree to. So you have everything talked out with the customer in terms of like a ballpark price and stuff. I oftentimes will tell people, like, I can't pre-price materials, but here's kind of around what this stuff usually runs. This is what the labor is going to cost, and we can kind of go from there. At the other end of things, I think that I think that people might be intimidated that they're kind of get talked into repair work that they don't need. I'll first of all say that, luthiers are picky about our guitars. Like, if you're talking to somebody who works in my industry, like, we don't have a guitar at home that hasn't seen a workshop, because we are the workshop. So, that's where like the stuff that's nice comes in, is like, I'll look at something and be like, hey, if we did this little tweak on your guitar, like, it would play this much better, or this little problem that you might be having will go away, or something like that. And, I think that those things should come up as suggestions. I don't think that they should be things that are hard pushed on a client. I think that, again, the whole thing should be a negotiation. You should feel like you're in the driver's seat, and if you don't feel like you're in the driver's seat, you might want to consider taking it to somebody else who's a little less pushy with you. Because at the end of the day, it's your instrument, and you know what you can afford, and you know what you want, and you know what the problem is. You know how you play. And so, the person who should be in control of, like, what the end result is you. The luthier, me, the guitar tech, we're just kind of a person to help you get there. And the thing that we should be doing is using our expertise to get you where you need to go. And so again, the best thing to do if you're having an issue is to bring it into the shop so that somebody like me can take a look at it and be able to look at what's going wrong and what's preventing that instrument from getting you where you want to go. Because that is going to be like the way to get an accurate assessment of the problem, to be able to get a ballpark quote on how much things are going to cost to repair, maybe to offer you different solutions than the expensive one that you may have had in mind. Sometimes the surprise that you get at a luthier shop is a good one. Like, instead of having to get like a $300 refret, maybe you only need like a $40 setup. Like, wouldn't that be nice? The other thing too is that personally, I think that instruments should be brought into the shop once in a while. Kind of similar to your car. Like, you don't want to just drive the car around for like years and years and years and like never take it into a shop, because, problems creep up on you, like brakes wear and, things develop little leaks. Some parts need to be changed out once in a while. And without somebody who's got like the expert, eye to take a look at that stuff, there may be things going wrong with your guitar that can drift and cause further problems down the line. A couple of things that I can talk about specifically that are kind of that way. One would be bow in necks. A really good example of a problem that I see a lot of creep with is if somebody never takes a guitar in for a setup, especially if it's like a high tension instrument, like a 12 string or something like that, and that truss rod never sees any adjustment, what'll happen is that wood will kind of gain memory and kind of come forward, and it becomes a lot harder to do the setup after a while. Another thing is like bridge plates, which is a thing that lives under your bridge and under your soundboard, which the string balls sit against. Those things can wear out over time, and you'll either need to get a bridge plate retainer installed or a new bridge plate installed. This is kind of a big problem with acoustic instruments because it's on the inside, and a player oftentimes can't even really see it or know what to look for. But what can happen as a result of those bridge plates wearing out is like the bridge can start coming up, the bridge stops resisting torque, it won't sound as good, you know, different issues will develop that are kind of structural related to that. And another one that's kind of structural related is braces and cracks. Cracks, if left to their own devices, can kind of spread out and become more unmanageable when it comes time to repair them. And you can take something that would normally run like a $40 crack repair and turn it into something that's going to be in the hundreds of dollars by kind of letting something sit indefinitely and just kind of do its own thing. Because when you've got a crack, you got two plates of wood, and those two plates of wood are going to kind of tend to shrink by themselves. And when that happens, it opens up a gap that needs to be filled, and that's a whole different ball game than just putting some glue into a crack and, you know, doing some finish repair. You know, in general, like, setups tend to drift. So if nothing else, like, bring in a guitar, and, you know, I would usually recommend that if you're like a pro player, you're on tour, you're relying on these things to pay the bills, I bring it in twice a year. Bring in your primary guitars twice a year to get looked at, one time for like the fall and winter months, and once for the spring and summer months, because you may need two different setups, you know, for those times of year. Guitars are living, breathing things. They kind of absorb moisture and they let it go, you know, and as that happens in different seasons, especially like here in Seattle where we have our very wet winters versus our pretty dry summers, you know, that's a thing that can be worth considering. And if you're not like a pro player, if you're not relying on your guitar to pay the bills, I would still bring it in like every 2 years at least. You know, at my shop, like, the worst that's going to happen is like I'm just going to tell you that it needs another setup. Usually, what I'll say is like, oh, okay, well, the neck has drifted a little bit. Let's do a little truss rod adjustment, and, you know, send somebody out the door. Like, a lot of times, if it's just really simple stuff like that, I usually don't even charge for it, and people just tell me like, what can you give me? And I'll just like kind of ask, what's it worth to you? Because it's you know, it's such a small deal. But over time, that little thing that's a small deal can become a big deal. And so hopefully this video is informative for people out there who have questions about their guitars, and kind of like what you can expect when you go into a shop, and also kind of gave you some information on like why you should bring something in on a regular basis, even if you don't necessarily see any like obvious problems developing. It's just good to keep on top of stuff, and it's good to have a professional opinion from somebody who's actually looked at the thing and been able to tell you what's wrong. I think that if you find somebody who, you know, answers one of those emails by like, oh yeah, it's definitely this, and I definitely have the solution, and this is what I'm going to do, I think that person is a shyster, and you should stop talking to them. So that's my final word on this whole thing, and with that, this has been Drew Jones of Drew's Guitar Shop in Seattle, Washington. If you have a guitar repair or a guitar that you want me to look at, you can go ahead and bring it in, and I can tell you what to do about it, and then do it. If you found this video helpful and you want to kick me a few bucks, there's a link to my Ko-Fi in the description down below, and a link to my Patreon down below. You can subscribe to that for like $1 a month or whatever. Helps me out a little bit in making these videos, because I do take time out of my repair schedule to do these. I also have a link down there to my Reverb page where I have some instruments for sale. Other than that, there's a lot more videos kind of like this on my channel, so if this was interesting to you and you think you might find the rest of my stuff entertaining, go check out the rest of my videos. Thanks for watching.